Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. And by the way, I am Dr. Michael de Guzman, and I am tasked this afternoon to share with you some information on teaching skill-based subjects in online platform learning platforms. So to start, our discussion this afternoon will be focusing on three essential topics. Number one is the learning delivery modality. So nowadays, with the onset of the new normal, I understand that DepEd, together with all the schools in the Philippines, we have problems now in meeting our students face to face. So the Department of Education has given directives to all schools to use different learning delivery modalities. Now, the second is the online learning platforms. So I know that with the use of technology, online learning platforms are very essential in transferring content, delivering content to our students using gadgets like cell phones and the laptop. And of course, we need to have the internet connection. Number three is the skill-based subjects. So all of us are teaching different subjects, and I know that each subject is catering to several skills. So for example, in English, we have sets of skills. In mathematics, there are also sets of skills together with other subjects. So these three will be very essential in our discussion this afternoon. And then when we hit number three, skill-based subjects, I will be providing you some techniques on how to teach the skill-based subjects. So next is, you would see on the screen, why do we have technology? Especially with this pandemic that we have now, we cannot deny the fact that technology is inevitable. So we cannot avoid that for this particular time, we need to use technology to deliver our content, to deliver knowledge to our students, especially that face-to-face interaction is very impossible to do, especially in the schools. So technology will play a very important role in the delivery of our content, especially to delivering them to our students, and also how the students will give us their feedbacks or outputs. So next one is the new normal. So for the new normal, why do we have this new normal in education? So according to an article given by DepEd, so they released it on May 5, 2020, that the new normal in education is actually onset, and we know for a fact that this new normal cannot be avoided. So we need to be flexible, particularly in reconstructing and developing our own learning materials in order to be effective in delivering our lessons or topics to the students. So the new normal is actually a part now of the Philippine educational system. So hindi natin siya maiiwasan. So therefore, we need to apply different learning modalities in order to fit the new normal. So according to DepEd, learning modalities can be applied or can be used by teachers both in the public and private schools. And there are different learning modalities that you can utilize in order to deliver your lessons or topics to your students. So next slide. Yeah, the learning delivery modalities. So learning delivery modalities, these are means and resources used to structure the learning experience. So what do we consider in learning delivery modalities? So number one, it is customized according to each learner, particularly number one, individual learning level. So what is the meaning of this individual learning level? The grade level of your students, particularly the different subjects that you're teaching also should be considered in the individual learning level. Number two is the personal characteristics. Learners are different from one another, so we need to consider also individual differences. Number three, learning needs. So with this pandemic and with the type of modalities that are available, we need to choose only the most essential competencies or skills that we need to develop in our students. So these are the competencies that all right. So going back, learning needs. So consider only the most essential competencies or skills that you think are needed by the students, especially for this particular setup of the school year. So if the needs or some topics are to be considered incidental, or these skills would be touched under the most essential competencies, then and then number four, learning styles. So each learner has his or her own learning style. So the learning styles should also be considered in the learning delivery modalities that you're going to use for your subjects. Okay, the next slide. Yan. So there are different modes of learning and delivery. So we have in teams, either individual, what else? Pwede rin facilitated in person or facilitated virtually. So according to an article posted by Manila Bulletin on their website, the learning delivery modalities. So DepEd, according to this article, DepEd offers various learning modalities that the schools and CLCs as well as parents can choose from when classes start. So you can use blended learning, what else? Distance learning, homeschooling, apprenticeship, and the face-to-face subject to approval of the DepEd, DOH, and the IATF. There are some regions na under ano na sila, yung modified general community quarantine, and probably face-to-face is possible. Then you may choose the face-to-face learning modality. But for those under ECQ or GCQ, and yung area nyo ay mataas pa ang kaso ng COVID, then probably you can choose blended learning, distance learning, or homeschooling. And even tong virtual classroom or virtual learning. Okay, next slide. What else? So when you say blended learning, I know you have an idea of what blended learning is. So pag blended, it's combination of traditional, what else? And the use of technology. While the distance learning, you deliver it through online platforms. And probably familiar na kayo sa ibang mga learning platforms then distance learning can be done. Another is homeschooling. So for homeschooling, now what will you provide? Learners will have access to quality basic education only at home to be facilitated by the parents, guardians, or your tutors who have undergone relevant training. So, according to DepEd, yung mga balita na ipapalabas, the parents and the guardians have a very important role now, particularly in this time. Now, when you do homeschooling, parents should play a very important role, particularly in educating and in teaching their children. Okay, next one. What else? Yeah, for apprenticeship level, this is ideal for the senior high school, grades 11 and 12. So for the apprenticeship learning, what will you provide? You will provide opportunities for actual immersion in the workplace if the government or if the learners will be allowed to be immersed in workplace situations under the supervision of a certified practitioner. So if you have different strands in senior high school, then you can also do this apprenticeship. Okay. Now, the apprenticeship is actually applicable in the tech voc, the TVL specializations that will require more on-site learning and application skills than academics. Okay, another one. This time, let's have the online learning platforms. Now, probably the others have a very vague idea of what online learning platforms are. So when you say online learning platforms, these are integrated set of interactive online services that provide trainers, learners, and others involved in education with information, so content, and then tools, the different tools that you will be using, whether gadgets, what else, whether online tools, and then resources, ebook, or other forms to support and enhance education delivery and okay, what else? Aside from this, one type of online learning platform that you can use is the LMS or the Learning Management System. So there are schools with their own LMS, like for example in FAU, they have this Canvas. UST naman, they're using the Blackboard. And in other schools, they have their own LMS. What's the use of this LMS? The LMS can be very helpful in delivering your content to your students. For example, if you have your PowerPoint and then you will be discussing something with your students online, after the discussion, Okay, going back to sa learning management system. So, if you have your learning management system, kasi ito ay binibili actually. So, if your school has its own LMS or learning management system, then it would be easier for you to deliver your content, your students, whether synchronous or asynchronous. So for example, if you discuss something online and then some students are not able to attend your session, then you can upload your presentation or you can even record your discussion, and then the students who are not able to attend your scheduled session, then they can still attend Okay. I hope narinig niyo pa rin ako. Pasensya na dahil talagang pagka ganito ang unstable ang internet connection, minsan napuputol. So going back to sa LMS, so if you have your own LMS, then it's easier to deliver your lessons and content to your students. So next is the types of online learning. So that everybody will be familiar, there are several types of online learning that you can utilize. So number one, I'm sure familiar kayo sa computer managed learning. Ito yung computer lab, and then the students will go to the computer laboratory, and what will happen? The students will manipulate, or the students will be guided by some instructions on a particular program or system that you have in your database or in that computer. Next, we also have CAI, or the computer assisted instruction. So for this, usually nung dati pa kami tuturo nito, we had this seminar na computer assisted instruction using PowerPoint. And then as you deliver your content using the PowerPoint, the students also have their own computer units, and then they can do or perform tasks given by the teachers. Okay, ito naman isa, linear e-learning. Pag sinabing linear, sabi one straight line lang yan. Meaning, content will be coming from the teacher to be given to the audience or the students. One example, if you're going to use TV or radio to deliver your lesson, then we call that linear e-learning. Pwede itong synchronous, pwede rin asynchronous ito. Recorded, and then the students will just watch your recorded discussion. Okay. Another one is the interactive online learning. This is very much good, or this is better than the linear e-learning. Why? The students can interact or can give comments on, or they can give questions, and then all of them can collaborate, and then they can process the information, or they can discuss the topic online. Pwede rin itong guided by the teacher. So the teachers and the students can interact online. Okay, so all of these can be utilized by the teachers, especially when you develop your own module, or when you develop your own online presentation. Okay, another one. Next slide. Yan. Another illustration of the learning platforms. So to differentiate synchronous and asynchronous, kasi di iba sabihin, paano yung record? Live. Yung discussion, scheduled. O, asynchronous yun. Kasi there is a scheduled date for the discussion, whether face-to-face or live online. Now, it can be asynchronous. For example, hindi naka-attend ang bata dun sa inyong live online discussion. What will happen? Pwede nyo i-record ang inyong discussion, ang inyong presentation, pwede nyo i-upload, and then it will become asynchronous if the students have no data, walang internet connection, o kaya walang gadget pa, maghahanap pa, manghihiram pa. Once they have the data or the internet connection, they can just download the recorded presentation and they can learn from the presentation that you have uploaded. So yun, asynchronous na. Kasi hindi na siya nakasabay dun sa inyong scheduled online discussion. Okay, so there are different types for face-to-face classroom, physical classroom, yung usual na ginagawa natin, pero ngayon bawal kasi baka mahahawa kayo, magkasakit pa kayo. What else? Field trips and laboratory classes. For live online, yan, we have the virtual classroom and the webinar. Webinar, this just like this one that we are doing. For coaching and mentoring, pwede rin siya maging synchronous. Now, another one is the use of collaboration and community. What are the examples? Yan, portal site, blog, wiki, chat, IM, threaded discussion, and the VoIP. What else? Multimedia. Pwede nyo rin gamitin. Like video streaming. What else? Kung mga estudyante nyo masyadong techie, ayan na, podcast, distance learning, and you can also use some DVDs or yung mga e-books niyo, pwede ilagay nyo dyan sa inyong learning platform. Another one, the web-based learning. So from web-based learning, ano mangyayari dito? So syempre kailangan nyo ng internet connection. What else? Web-based learning is self-paced. Consider it is a self-paced tutorial. Ano pa? Simulation is also an example. And then you can also give games. Especially the learners now, mas gusto nila yung mga very exciting, very entertaining activities. So you can utilize games in your lessons. What else? Performance support. So we have the knowledge management, workflow automation, performance support, and the mobile and wireless. So gadgets can be used by the learners in order to perform different tasks given by the teachers. Okay, another one, let's have the learning management system. Bakit ba may ganito? Baka yung iba kasi, ano ba yung LMS na yan? Example, yung school ninyo merong biniling LMS and then the administration will tell you to use it. So LMS is an online system or software which is used to plan, execute, and assess a specific learning process. What else? This is used in e-learning programs and it helps in administration, documentation, tracking, and recording. And it maintains an online collaboration on the internet. So if you have this LMS in your school, it is easier to deliver your lessons, particularly when you develop your modules, and then you will deliver your modules through emails or group chats. Mas madali ito kaysa yung mga libre. Kasi pag mga libre lang, minsan hindi kaya, merong limitation ng paggamit ng program or ng system. Okay, what else? Aside from that, according to Rules 2019, Learning Management System is a software application or web-based technology used to plan, implement, and assess a specific learning process. So if the students have gadgets and they have the internet connection, and then you have your LMS, then secured ang pag-deliver ninyo ng content. And then students can easily work on different activities that you will be giving them. And for assessment, it's also very easy. Why? All they have to do is to send to your specific email or group chat ang output para nyo ma-check. And hindi nyo kailangan pumunta ng eskwelahan para lang kunin yung mga output nila. So this is even safer. Hindi kayo mahahawakan ng virus. Less gases pa to. Kasi nga, ang school na ang nag-maintain itong LMS, binili ito, and all you have to do is to use it for your instructional delivery. Okay? What else? Yan. We have the purposes of the learning management system. So what are the purposes ng LMS? Number one, to deliver content. Kaya kailangan nga natin ito kasi this is the only means or ito yung pinaka-effective to deliver content to your learners. Number two, to enhance the learning process. So since most of the learners now are techie, masyado na silang high-tech, hindi kagaya namin, mga Kaya ako digital, hindi ako digital native, digital migrant. So since I am a teacher, it can enhance my way of delivering my lectures or delivering my content to the students. Number three, to improve classroom teaching, learning methodology, and even the records of the school. So LMS can be very helpful in improving, enhancing your way of teaching. Kasi nga, ang dami-daming paraan para nyo makuha ang atensyon ng bata, especially pag ginamit yung ganitong mga online learning platforms ito. Okay. So to handle registering courses, course administration, skill gap analysis, tracking, and reporting. So if you have this LMS, it's very easy to record. It's very easy to keep records of your students, particularly their outputs. It's very easy to rate or score. What else? You can even analyze their needs if they are able to meet your expectations, particularly on a certain output that you're asking them to submit or to do. Okay, another one. What else? Uses of the LMS. Maraming gamit yan. And itong LMS ito ay talagang napakagandang gamitin. So for uses of LMS, we have number one. Next slide, please. Yan. So one use to deliver online training or class to your students. So number two, offer courses that provide students access to education. So courses referring to mga subjects ninyo na itinuturo, and gaya nga sinabi mo kanina, impossible to go to school, then the LMS can be your effective tool. Number three, to support course delivery and provide online learning and blended learning opportunities for students and employees. So using the LMS, what will happen to your delivery of instruction? It is considered very effective. Kasi nga ang bata, maraming pwedeng gawin, marami siyang pwedeng i-explore. And you can also guide them in performing tasks if you have these different learning platforms. All right? And then number four, to maintain online collaboration on the internet. So ngayon wala na yung yung individual, dapat yun collaborative learning na. So working in teams or groups. Mas maganda kasi ito dahil they are able to exchange ideas and they can process all of these ideas so that they can target or develop skills that you intend or that you want them to develop. Okay? Another one, ano naman ang mga benefits ng LMS? Okay, next slide please. Benefits of LMS. Number one, streamlined training process. So since this is online, everybody can, your students can view, you can have access online. Basta meron lang internet connection ng bata, madali itong makuha or makita. Ano pa? The ability to deliver engaging and motivating training and lessons. Since you have different resources, makukuha, ilalagay ninyo sa inyong presentation or sa inyong lessons, then it can make your lessons more interesting, more engaging and more motivating. Hindi kagaya ng traditional, minsan ng bata, hindi na interesado kasi normal lang nila nakikita. Unlike ito, kung may mga games yan, if example, gagamit kayo ng Kahoot, o di ba yung iba dyan gustong-gusto yung mga ganun. Sa motivation, mas makukuha ninyo ang atensyon ng inyong estudyante. Number three, technology leverage. Ano yung sabihin? Technology leverage, you are able to use different tools available online. At syempre, may level up kayo at makikita ng bata na kayo ay talagang you make your lessons very presentable at hindi kayo sasabihin ng bata na ano ba yan, Jurassic naman, hindi namin maintindihan. Kasi nga, using technology, you are able to connect with your students. Ano pa? Centralized learning. Since you upload, di ba, i-upload din yung inyong presentation, tapos magkakaroon kayo ng scheduled online class, then you can actually see the reactions of your students when they participate in your online discussion. Ano pa? The teacher can monitor the outputs of the students, especially when they submit. Kasi nga, ito ay lahat doon lang ilalagay doon sa specific na na i-assign ninyong group for the submission of the output. Ano ba? Tracking and reporting features. So using LMS, you can monitor those students who are not participating and those students who are submitting outputs. And then evaluation capabilities. You can see if the students are actually learning when they participate in your discussion online, or pagka-synchronous naman yan, pwede pa rin ma-evaluate through their outputs na isasubmit sa inyo. Ano pa? The learning process is simplified. If you use learning platforms, ang pakiusap ko lang, make it very simple. For example, sa English, huwag naman kayong gumamit ng mga highfalutin words. Ang bata magna-nosebleed na, tapos i-off na yung gadget or i-off na yung laptop nila dahil ayaw na nila kayong papakinggan. Make it simple so that everybody can understand and comprehend. Pagka ganyan, mas madaling magawa ng bata ang gusto niyo ipagawa. Okay? Ano pa? Interactive environment. Kasi nga lahat kayo ay nasa isang group. For example, may group, you are using Google Meet, ano pa, Zoom, or yung group chat ninyo, then you can interact. Pwede kayo magtanong. Ano pa, you can exchange ideas for a particular topic. And another benefit is it is an anytime, anywhere learning. So wala akong data ngayon, wala akong internet connection, o mamaya na lang. O, pag nagkaroon ka rin ng internet connection, that's the time, pwede mong pag-aral. The student can download, pag-aaralan niya na, makikita niya na ang inyong recorded discussion or your uploaded presentation. Okay? Okay, what else? Yan. Ito yung illustration ng e-learning. Para mas malinaw, next slide please. Yan. So if you utilize e-learning, ay balik, pakibalik. Yan. So if you use e-learning, especially for this school year, ito ang mga pwede nyong mapala. Ito ang mangyayari. Number one, ito pinakagusto ko dyan it increases teacher effectiveness. You will become very effective in the transfer of learning. Pasintabi po dun sa mga may edad, pero I know, alam ko na madali rin kayo matuto, kagaya rin naman namin. We were given training. Nung una, ayoko talaga nito. Kasi feeling ko, hindi ako maiiwanan ako nito at saka nakakatakot magpipindot-pindot ng kung ano-ano. But when I started learning all of these forms of technology for instruction, mas na-appreciate ko siya kaysa sa the usual and traditional na nakakapagod. Ano pa, masyadong mahal kasi bibili kayo ng mga materials ninyo. Pag nasira pa ang materials, wala na, hindi nyo na magagamit, gagawa na naman kayo ng panibago. Unlike etong online, you can save your presentation, your lectures, and next school year, kapag kailangan nyo na naman, pwede nyo uling gamitin, pwede nyo ma-retrieve. Kasi nga, it is already available. Hindi siya nasisira unless ma-virus ang inyong laptop. Ano pa? It improves productivity in class. The students, whether online class ito, productivity is improved. Kasi nga, using their imagination, alam ko ang mga bata ngayon are very creative in using technology, then outputs of these students are expected to be what? Very good. Ano pa? Masyadong bongga kumpara doon sa mga datihan ng mga grupo ng mga mag-aaral na ang mga output lang ay common. Ngayon, iba-iba na. Diba? At magugulat na lang kayo when they present their outputs. What else? E-learning enhances innovative teaching learning procedures. Ano pa? Teaching aid resources din ng e-learning. Kasi nga, there are different websites that you can use for your lessons, and then you can even download some information. What else? Images, ano pa? Pwede rin mga tools to improve your instructional delivery. Ano pa? Formative assessment. Using e-learning, formative assessments can be very effective because you can see the students learning, ano pa, nakakasabay sa inyong lesson kasi nga interactive yan, nakakapag-collaborate, and you can immediately address their concerns. Okay. Ito pa isang maganda. Face-to-face interaction laced, di ba? Denekorasyonan with computer-aided learning. So whether online ito or using may camera, nagkakakitaan. So this is considered more high-tech as traditional. So face-to-face pa rin yan kasi nga nagkakakitaan pa rin eh. And you use computers or your gadgets for the lessons that you are delivering. What else? It introduces abstract concepts. Especially mamaya, pag pinakita ko na yung teaching skill-based subjects, maganda ito. Na if you use different learning platforms, abstract concepts are introduced and the students can use the abstract concepts to learn new skills. Ito mas maganda kasi yan. Tama na yung more on teacher talk. Dapat yan, less teacher talk, more student activities guided by the servant. All right. Another one. The next slide. Ito na yung skill-based subjects. Yan. Pag sabing skill-based subjects, ano ba talaga yan? So according to my source, the skill-based subjects are those areas in which students need to develop a set of skills to learn anything at all. So pwedeng English, mathematics, what else? Science, TLE. So the skill-based subjects are fundamental to learning any subject. And usually, itong skill-based subjects na to, it includes, they include reading, writing, and thinking. Ito yung pinaka-basic eh. How to read information, understanding information, and then what else? Writing what they have observed, or writing their ideas, and processing all the information, concepts that they receive from the teachers in order to produce effective outcomes or outputs. Now, remember, if you're teaching skill-based subjects, always align. I-align ninyo palagi, particularly your learning objectives and your learning activities with the Bloom's taxonomy, yung revised Bloom's taxonomy. Tandaan nyo, di ba, there are different levels. So from remembering, which is considered lower order, hindi na masyadong tinatouch yan eh. Dapat yan, magtatouch kayo more on, applying, going to, creating. Kasi these are considered higher order thinking skills. And if you use all of this in your lessons, then the skills that you are teaching or the skills that you want your students to display or to develop would be very visible, very evident. At ang mga output nila ay talagang magaganda at very unique. Okay, another one. Let's have the approaches to learning alignment. I will be giving you 4 different approaches to learning alignment. Ito na yung pagtuturo. So how do you teach now skill-based subjects? So number 1 is the objective identification. So usually, common na ito eh, sa lesson plan, may objectives dapat kasi without the objective, then lost kayo. Hindi ko alam kung anong tatargetin ninyo. So make sure that you have your set of objectives na meron tayong yung catering to the cognitive, affective, and the psychomotor. Yung iba, ang tawag naman nila is thinking and communicating domain. Tapos meron ding feeling domain and the doing domain. And then number 2, kapag meron na kayong objective, they will need to, what are the different skill indicators na gusto nyong ilagay. So itong mga skill indicators na to, mamaya papakita ko yung mga examples so that when the students perform formative assessment, the following skills are exhibited in their interaction, participation, in their outputs. Number 3, you should decide on a specific strategy that you will use when you teach your subject. So the skill strategy that will be explicitly taught and practiced is, ano yung particular name ng strategy, pwede yung, minsan tinatawag sila yung show and tell strategy or the PECA, hindi ko alam kung may exact yung term, yung using images and then they will narrate or they will use the images to tell something. Ang tawag natin, peka kutya. Parang ganun ang term nun. Okay? So, once you have your strategy, then number 4, there must be evidence. So the formative assessment used to elicit student learning is, so use formative assessment to identify or to show evidences of learning. And then later on, kapag natapos nyo ang inyong topic o kaya ang inyong lesson, then you can also use summative assessment. All right? So let's have the use of these approaches. Next slide. Yan. So, with the condition of our society now, may pandemya, di ba? Pakibalik po. Yan, may pandemic. Ito ang pinakamagandang, isa sa mga pinakamagandang pwede niyong gawin. How to develop learning agility. So, learners can can have the following skills, especially we have this remote learning, flexible learning. Hindi imposible ma-monitor niyo sila na face-to-face. So using this one, then learning agility is developed. Ano itong learning agility na to? If you're familiar with the VUCA world, yung VUCA na yan, yung volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Usually, this is referring to situations, situations that can be related to your topics or lessons so that the students can generate new ideas, new information, and they can learn also skills, new skills. So ito yung mga different skills. We have for communication, interactive skills, and the language skills. And then for thinking, you can develop critical thinking, creative thinking, and transfer. Research is also part of the developing learning agility. Example, information literacy and the media literacy. For social, yan, collaboration. And then for self-management, we have organization, affective skills, and reflection. So all of these skills are very important. So once you develop all of these skills, or if the students will have all of these skills, then what will happen to them if they are exposed to different types of environment na, ayan, kagaya nga, may volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, or there are problems that they need to solve. So number 1, your students will become effective communicator. Diba? Number 2, they will become risk takers. Kasi nga, they have the knowledge and the skills, then they will be able to take risks and eventually they can become effective decision makers or good at making decisions. Ano pa? Reflective. Ito pinakagusto ko The students will be reflective learners. So at the end of the day or at the end of the task that they perform, they can reflect. Am I able to meet the expectation or the objectives set by the teacher, or is my output very relevant to the present situation, or am I able to contribute something worthwhile or valuable to my community? What else? The students are also developing principles, so they become principled individuals. Kasi nga, marami natutunan, and they are able to apply what they have learned from your lessons, plus the skills that they have. Okay, what else? Open-minded. So the students can receive and can give meaningful feedbacks. And if there are criticisms given by others, hindi sila yung negative ang response. Dapat yan positive palagi, so that continuous improvement, continuous learning is is encouraged or visible. Okay, the next slide, I'll be showing you one example. Yan. Example ito in the area of English, yan, communication skills, how to teach. There are two. We have the interactive skills. So pag sinabi niyo interactive skills, exchange of thoughts, messages, and information effectively through interaction. So the following are some of the skill indicators that you can use for your activities or for your lessons. So number one, give and receive meaningful feedback. Take note on meaningful. So dito maiiwasan na yung mga feedback na hindi related or hindi relevant sa topic ninyo. So with these indicators, the students are guided properly. Okay. Number two, next slide please. Yan, language skills. So these skills are reading, writing, and using language to gather and communicate information. Iba ito dun sa interactive. So the following are the indicators for developing language skills. So we have read critically and for comprehension. Ano pa? Meron yung pinakailalim, tignan ninyo. Structure information in summaries, essays, and reports. So all of these indicators will help the students in developing language skills. So if you ask them to write essays or if you ask them to write reports, then they can use the language skills that they learn from your lessons. So nandiyan nilagay ko na rin yung website so that you can check if you have unavailable time or free time, you can check some strategies na pwede nyo gamitin when you teach language skills and interactive skills. Okay, so ito yung example niyan. So example, you will be working on your learning material or module o your presentation. So number one objective, bawa akong teacher, ang objective ko ay express one's thoughts and ideas on the plans and actions of the government to COVID-19 pandemic. So what will be my skill indicator? So I want my students to develop interactive skill. So pwede ko ilagay dyan, give and receive meaningful feedback about the topic. And then my strategy, ito yung kinuha ko dun sa source. So gagamit ako ng critical friends model and then ladder of feedback and then clarify, probe, recommend. Pwede rin gumamit kayo ng the wow, how, and now approach and the RISE model feedback. Any of these strategies can be applied if you want them to develop the interactive skill. Pwede rin namang lahat yan, but make sure these strategies are considered important. Choose only the most important strategy. Kapag hindi naman masyado, then huwag na isama. Pwedeng dalawa, pumili kayo ng dalawa dyan, especially when you present your learning activities. And then for the evidence, so what will my students do? So the students will read and present news articles about governments, plans and actions for the pandemic. So once they start presenting news articles, so babasahin sa class, magbabasa muna and then they will present when you have your online class. So what will happen? The others will be listening to the presentation of the students, can start giving feedback, meaningful feedback about the plans and actions of the government. So once they start exhibiting the giving and the receiving of meaningful feedback, then you are developing in them the interactive skill. Kasi nga, nagpapahila na sila ng kanilang mga opinion or kanilang saloobin regarding the topic that you provided. Okay, what else? Bukod dyan, meron pang isa. Bago tayo pumunta sa learning module. Using the following, pwedeng idadagdag ko itong isa, ha? Itong paggamit ng tinatawag nating 5 E's in instructional delivery. Ano yung 5 E's na to? Ang tawag ko dito is the 5E instructional model. 5 E, letter E ha. So ano yung unang E? So, yung unang E, engage. So itong 5E na to can be placed in your under the column on evidence. Itong sa evidence sa column, pwedeng yan yung 5E ipapasok ninyo. Okay? Pwede rin namang yung first 4 nandito sa strategy, tapos yung evaluation ninyo pwedeng ilagay nyo sa evidence. Depending on the type of lesson that you have. So the 5E instructional model is actually student inquiry-based learning for all classes. So all subjects can use the 5E instructional model. And then when you use the 5E instructional model, the students construct knowledge and meaning from their experiences. So mas maganda ito kumpara dun sa traditional na kinagis na ng pagtuturo. Ano pa? The 5E model provides multiple opportunities for assessment and opportunity for differentiation. Okay? So the first E is engage. Yan pwedeng unang gagamitin. Engage means connect the topic with prior understanding or experience of your learners. What else? The purpose of this first step or the engaging, the engage stage is to get students excited and ready to explore the topic or concept. So sa ibang term, pwede natin i-associate dito ang motivation. Okay? Second E. Ano yung second E? Explore. So for this particular stage, ano mangyayari niya? The students can start investigating the problems associated with the topic or concept. Ano pa? Teachers can provide hands-on activities as the students do the investigation. Ano pa? Teachers do not provide direct instruction. Wala itong direct instruction ang explore. Kasi nga, you will just lead the students through inquiry-based questions. And the students reflect on the results of their investigations. So, under the explore stage, pwede dito mag-generate ng hypothesis. And then later on, the hypothesis can be modified depending on the result of the investigation. Okay, number 3, explain. Number 3, E, explain. So what will the students do? The students will connect findings to prior knowledge. So if they see any connection or relevance or importance, then the findings are considered acceptable, true. Ano pa? They can also define necessary vocabulary. So if there are new terms that have to be understood, then they need to give the meaning and then they have to define it operationally. Kung paano nila ginamit yun sa kanilang investigation. Number 3, this stage is a direct instruction phase. So new information is shared collaboratively. So the students are now actually said they are engaged in collaborative discussion. So they can exchange ideas on the findings that they have, and then the students can understand the information through single example. So single example can be provided and make sure the single example is very clear. And then once they understand this, you can now proceed to the next stage. Yung 4, number E, 4th E, extend. So under the extend stage, ano mangyayari dito? The students can solidify understanding by connecting what has been learned to something real. What else? They are able to formulate generalizations and conclusions. So based on the collaborative discussion and the giving of ideas, and then they're able to verify, ano pa, they are able to clarify the information in their findings. Then, once the information is refined, na bago na, naalis na yung mga misconceptions, ano na mangyayari dito? Then they can give generalizations and conclusions. And then the last E is evaluate. So under the evaluate stage, the students can compare earlier understanding of what they know now. So pwedeng yung alam nila noon, based on the findings, based on the conclusion, hindi na pala siya totoo. So it becomes a new information. Number two, the evaluate stage can also address misconceptions. So students sometimes have different information learned from different people, and this information can lead them to different different ideas, which are somehow considered misconceptions. Kaya using this one, misconceptions are addressed properly. And then the last is, the students can reflect on what they know and how they are able to prove what they know in writing, discussion, and demonstration. So when you evaluate, automatically the skills are manifested in the different outputs of the students or outcomes that you want them to show. Okay, so this particular instructional model is very helpful in teaching skill-based subjects. Kaya pag ito ay in-apply ninyo, particularly in constructing your module, or constructing your audio-visual presentation, or when you deliver your lesson online, if you apply the 5P instructional model, then I can say this can be very effective in teaching skills to your students. Okay, next slide. What else? Kasi iba gagamit ng module. I understand yung iba, module ang gagamitin nila. So, paano ba itong paggamit ng module na to? At paano paggawa ng module na yan? Kagaya rin yan na una kong pinresent, na if you use the 5D instructional model, this model can be helpful also in structuring or developing your module. Let's have the next example. So in your module, you can begin with your springboard. The springboard engaging activity, your motivation, so that the students are prepared for the lesson and they can activate their prior knowledge or past experiences. So ito, example ito, science ito na sa lesson na pinresent sa module. So ang springboard is the circulatory and respiratory system. Anong gagamitin niyo dito? Pwedeng gumamit kayo ng pictures, Pwede rin kayong gumamit ng video clips showing the importance of circulatory and respiratory system, or pwede rin mga video pictures or situations na mga sakit na involving circulatory and respiratory system. Kagaya ngayon, may COVID-19. Very timely yan. Ginamit yung springboard. Halimbawa, pag nahawa kayo ng virus or napasukan kayo ng virus na to, what will happen to you? In that way, the students can give some ideas which may be true based on what they heard from news or based on what they receive from people or persons who are considered reliable. Pwede mga napakinggan nila sa doktor, napakinggan sa balita na pag napasukan ka ng virus na yan, ito ang mangyayari sa inyo. Alright? The next one, discussion proper. Ano yung discussion proper na yan? This is where you deliver your content. Okay? Ano pa? In the discussion proper, it should be learner-centered. You can also observe, or you can also use the spiral progression. What else? Competence-based. Ano pa? It should also be contextualized. Mas maganda ang contextualized so that the learners can adapt easily. Okay. Another one, dito sa discussion proper na to, all concepts, all information needed for your discussion should be given so that the students will have a very clear understanding of the topic. Pwede rin kayo maglagay ng mga illustrations sa inyong module to illustrate examples, to illustrate concepts para mas maintindihan ng bata ang lesson. Okay? After the discussion proper, ano na mangyayari? Siyempre, meron na kayong formative assessment. So for formative assessment, next slide please. Yan. Formative assessment, example in English, yan, understanding slang. Filipino naman, another activity like mga direksyon. O Filipino or aralin panlipunan, mga direksyon. You can give these activities to monitor if the students are actually learning, kung nakakasabay at naiintindihan ng bata ang inyong module na ginawa. Okay, another one. Ano yung isa? Siyempre, lesson enders. Ano yung lesson enders na yan? Next slide, please. Lesson enders, you can provide activities. Pwedeng application, writing activity, pwede ring test or short quiz. And then itong lesson enders na to can be done online, pwede rin namang offline. Depende yan sa ng teacher, sa ginawang module ng teacher. Kung online yan, then it should be synchronous. Pwedeng gawin niya ng bata synchronously, or kung walang kung gusto niyo naman asynchronous yan or offline, then you can provide different activities for lesson enders. Now, always remember, when you create your module, always refer to the curriculum guide kasi very important. Yung curriculum guide ng DepEd, kasi there are competencies and skills that are indicated in the curriculum guide, and these essential competencies that you will be choosing should be included in your online learning materials or modules, which will be used by your students. Okay, so using the online learning platforms, what will happen? Using online learning platforms, we are bridging traditional classroom to the new normal. O di ba, nakita nyo kanina yung 5E, engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate, ano pa? Dito naman, merong ibang term, yung 6A's, activity, analysis, abstraction, and application. Actually, almost the same ang kanilang meaning, but when you apply them, make sure that all the activities are properly aligned and the activities are relevant. And make sure the skill that you want your students to learn must be manifested in the output or outcome that they will be giving you or that they will be submitting. Okay? So I hope, almost na pala ito ng ating discussion, I hope meron kayo natutunan ngayon sa pagtuturo ng inyong ng skill-based subjects using online learning platforms. And if you have questions, pwede nyo i-send yung mga tanong nyo dun sa chat, pwede nyo i-type, and then I will be answering them one by one. So, a final word ko ngayon, after learning from this webinar, I'm sure and I believe kaya-kaya nyo mag-develop ng very effective, very efficient learning materials at kaya-kaya nyo gumamit ng online learning platforms to make the transfer of learning very effective. What else? very meaningful, very relevant. So once again, thank you for listening and happy teaching.